Hi, my name's Martin Purnell and welcome to Off-Grid Christianity, a weekly podcast for those who go or don't go to church and where we can meet and hear from those that have made their faith count. The podcast series is to encourage via conversation, and you can contact us as well by email, ogc@accessradio.biz, ogc@accessradio.biz, and biz of course is spelled B-I-Z. Our website address is www.offgridchristianity.co.uk. So who's today's guest? Well, she is an author whose first book, In Search of Lost Glitter, was published last year. What can you learn about yourself and your faith from 2010? How does your own mental health affect your day-to-day living and your Christian outlook since 2010? How cathartic was the writing of the book, which explains how she found her husband at 16 years dead, having just returned from popping out of the house in 2010. Looking back on the 15 years since this tragedy, what does she think of what she's achieved in dealing with these issues, raising her two young children, cancer, her own father passing away, and more? What is her hope for the future? How will she describe bereavement then and now? It gives me great pleasure to welcome Sarah Nicholson. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I love that introduction. I'd really like to listen to that. It sounds fascinating.
Well, just the introduction. You're more than welcome. You can switch off after that.
No, this wonderful person that you're interviewing, she sounds amazing.
Well, let's find out if it's true then. For those that don't know you, where are you based, please, Sarah?
I am based near Ipswich in Suffolk, which is where I grew up.
So, if you're sitting comfortably then, young Sarah, let's go for it. Question number 1. If you could invite anybody from history for an evening meal, alive or dead, so that you could ask them questions, who would it be?
I'd like to have a proper chat with my grandma.
That's a very good answer. Why?
So my grandma was born in 1900. Mm-hmm. She had 9 children. 7 survived. 2 of them died when they were only babies, before my dad came along. So my granddad died when my dad was only 10. I mean, a lot of them had grown up by the stage my dad was 10. Some of them were a lot older. I just think she had a fascinating life. I remember as a child going to church with her and sitting with her and finding the hymns in the hymn book and finding the hymns first and then swapping hymn books with her through the service. You know, she had this quiet faith, and she's just one of those people that I think it would be really nice to kind of sit down with her and just discuss what everybody's up to now and find out how she coped with widowhood, really.
Yeah.
In her day, when things were very, very different. I mean, she was typical of her generation. She usually had a cigarette on the go. You know, her kitchen smelled of boiled cabbage. She loved watching Emmerdale Farm, reading Catherine Cookson. You know, that was kind of her world. And it would just be fascinating to kind of find out more about her, because she died when I was about 20. So I didn't perhaps spend as much time with her talking as looking back. It was like, it would have been really nice to kind of know her better.
What was her name?
Her name was Jessie.
And what else did she do in her life apart from raise 9 children?
Well, her husband was a butcher, so she was a butcher's wife. You know, the things I've heard about my granddad, he was probably a fascinating character, because I've heard stories that she used to say, well, you make them pay their bill, you know, because she was kind of, you know, in charge. It's obviously thinking of family finances. And I think he was the kind of chap that, you know, would let people off and of that generation. So, yeah, I think that would be fascinating, I think, to find out more about her and then fill her in with all the update of what all my cousins and that are doing now.
Brilliant. Question 2. Who was your favourite biblical character or favourite biblical story or favourite parable, please?
Well, I will have to go for Esther. I just really liked the story. And at one stage I had a plan, and I've got half a novel written, well, sort of a bit of a novel written, of rewriting Esther as a modern dystopian young adult book.
Just going to nick this idea. Keep going.
Well, I'm not going to give too much away. I did start writing it at one point, but I kind of put it to one side, and maybe one day I'll come back to it. But I tend to write in really short form. I write lots of flash fiction. And
what is flash fiction? I know what Flash Gordon is.
Help! I've only got how many minutes to
2 minutes, isn't it? Yeah. Save the world.
Yeah. That's the one. No, so flash fiction is anything. I mean, the shortest story can be about 6 words.
Really?
Mm-hmm. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. That's the short story in 6 words.
Looking forward to the backstory.
Well, this is it. You see, there's the stories there. you fill all the pieces in yourself. That's always accredited to Hemingway, but actually I've Googled it and it wasn't Hemingway, but nobody's sure who did write it. So flash fiction is anything up to about 1,000 words. So it's just really short stories. And that's how I wrote my memoir, because I didn't know how to write my memoir and I was sort of struggling. I'd got lots of blog posts. I'd been blogging for a long time. And then I'd sort of discovered flash fiction and then discovered creative nonfiction, as it's called, and writing short excerpts with that. And a friend of mine just said, that's how you should write your memoir. So that's why my memoir is written in very short stories. So it all flows. There is a general narrative throughout my whole life. It makes it really accessible. And somebody said it's very good, for people with ADHD or people that, that struggle with reading and struggle with a longer narrative. And when you're grieving, when I was grieving, when I lost Andrew, finding a book to read and get really engrossed in was just impossible because your head's going off in all sorts of directions. So my book has been well received by people who perhaps struggle to read a longer piece.
That's very clever. We'll no doubt make more reference to your memoir, In Search of Lost Glitter, later on as well.
Yes.
Looking forward to that. Question 3 then, young Sarah. If you were Prime Minister for the day and could change any law or impose a new law, what would it be?
Oh, well, usually I'm frivolous, but sorry, I'm going for a serious one.
Ooh.
I'm going for a serious one. I would ban AI from being creative. Well, creative in inverted commas.
Yeah, you get my thumbs up on that one if people could see it on the radio.
Absolutely. I think AI has its place. I want AI to crunch big numbers and solve big problems. I do not want AI to write books, poems, do artwork and things like that. We want it to do all the drudgery stuff, the stuff that is perhaps beyond our capabilities, not the stuff that is creative.
Yes.
So there you go. That's me on a bit of a high horse on that one. But the trouble is the genie's out of the bottle and putting the genie back is nigh on impossible these days.
Of course, old MacDonald, who had a farm, he was very heavily involved in it, wasn't he? Moving on.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Question 4. Outside of family events, what has been your most enjoyable day out, please, Sarah?
So I'm taking family events to mean weddings and parties and things like
Correct.
that.
Outside of that, yes. Thank you.
I think it's days that I have with my boys or spend as a family. Obviously when we were a family of 4, we used to go out, the 4 of us, which was lovely. It didn't always work. But anyway, my husband wasn't a fan of holidays, but we'll get onto that another day. But I think the day out that sort of stuck in my mind was our day out we had to go ape. Actually, it was summer 2019. I had recently finished chemo, so we'd had a bit of a rubbish summer. We hadn't really done much. My eldest son had already left university, so he'd got a job, so he came to visit. My youngest son was home for the holidays from university. And of course, he'd had this whole summer where, mum had been spending a lot of the time just lying on the sofa, not doing very much. And I said, we're going out. Where are we going? We're going to go ape. Well, what's that? Both in their early 20s had no idea what we were doing. So I took them to go ape. And we got there. So, of course, you fill out the form first. You read through the terms and conditions and the safety check and whatever. Eldest son looks at the form. Yeah, this is a physical activity. Yeah, signs it quickly. I kind of read it, kind of skim read it, go, yeah, and sign it. Youngest son, the computer scientist, meticulously is like, Ben, just sign it. But I'm just checking. You shouldn't sign. Anyway, so eventually he signs it. Then we go for a little safety briefing. Oldest son is going, yeah, okay, what does this do? Yeah, that clip, yeah. Half listening. I'm listening with my post-chemo brain on. And then youngest son is listening very intently and working out what everything does. So we have our little practice and then we go climbing up these trees. So there were about 5 courses. So we did the first one, which was okay. And I'm thinking, gosh, this is quite high. Then we did the second one. And I'm like, oh, this is a bit scary. And then we did the third one. And I'm going, I don't know if I can do this. And my youngest son is beside me going, yes, you can. And all of a sudden, those roles are reversed. So from me being parent and guiding him, he's then saying, no, you can do this, and helping me get up to the top. And then, of course, you have to do the swingy thing where you're just holding on. I mean, you're all clipped on, but you just hold on and swing. And it was like, oh, gosh, this is so scary. So I got to the bottom of the third one. I went, I can't do the next one. I just can't do it. I said, it's just too much. I said, you two go and do it on your own. That's absolutely fine. You know, go and have fun. And I left them to do it. But I just remember that doesn't sound like a, you know, enjoyable day out. But what I remember is standing at the bottom in this forest. The boys are up, I can hear them laughing, squealing, and watching them and standing there going, 2 weeks ago, I was having chemo and I didn't know, you know, this time last year, I didn't even know that I had cancer. And then this, and now all of this has happened. And it was just kind of life affirming. That sounds a bit over the top, but it was just that beautiful day, looking up at the trees, hearing my children and thinking, I'm alive. This is how wonderful is this just to be here. And then we had, you know, we took photos at the end, you know, we took the inevitable selfies. And I never lost my hair through my chemo, but it went quite thin and it was very short and dyed bright pink at the time. And there's pictures and I look at myself and go, God, I look awful, you know, compared to how I look now. And I think it's amazing then to kind of go, gosh, how far I've come in those few years since that, you know, and all the things that have gone on. So it was enjoyable. I was with my two favourite people in the world and they were helping me and supporting me. But as well as helping me, they also let me have my space to go, actually, I've had enough now.
Yes.
And they went off. But just hearing them up in the trees was just lovely.
Truly great answer. And of course, most of the pink hair has been grown out now, apart from a little bit. There's a little shade there still.
Well, every now and again, it gets a little refresh.
That's very good.
There's a bit of blue as well, if you look very carefully.
Question 5. What's been your most embarrassing moment then, please?
If you ask my boys, they will tell you that I am the embarrassing one. I don't really suffer from embarrassment. It's me that embarrasses them. And they're always like, oh, God.
But you're allowed to do that. It's what parents are for.
I know, isn't it just? But I suppose the most embarrassing thing recently was I came home and because I'm part of Resolute Books, I do bookstalls and sell everybody else's books. So everybody sends their books to me. So I got home, I'd got stuff in my hands and I got in, dropped my stuff on the stairs inside. I thought, I'm going to take a photo of these books on the doorstep. I pulled the door to and thought I'd put the catch on, had my phone in my hand. I took a photo of the box of books on my doorstep, then tried to get in and realised I'd locked my keys in my house.
Oh, well done.
Fortunately, my mum lives about 15 minutes walk away. I hadn't got a coat on. Fortunately, it was a nice day. So I thought, I better check my mum's in. And I eventually got hold of her after about 15 phone calls. Mum, have you still got my spare key? And she went, yes. I said, good, because I've just locked myself out. Yeah, that's probably the most embarrassing. But I just laugh about these things.
Yeah,
because I'm that kind of person that if something's going to happen, I just go, yeah, well, it's me. I just like making people laugh. And if it's at my expense, I'd rather people laughed at me at my expense, you know, for fun than made fun of somebody else who's actually less fortunate.
Well, it's a very good attitude to have. I just want to throw another spanner in the works, if that's all right, on behalf of Pedants United, of which I like to consider myself a member of.
Okay.
And the fact that you are an author.
Yes.
So the use of the English language, you know more about than I do. One of the words I feel has crept into the English language that should be banned is the word gotten. I think that comes from America. And you said it.
Did I?
You said, I've gotten in when you opened the door.
Dear me.
Because in my day, it would have been, I got in.
No, I leave the pedantry to some of my other Resolute chums because they're much more in tune with that. I'm more down with the people.
You are. Well, in that case, then, stay down with the people because they use the word gotten.
I hadn't realised I said it. I'm going to have to listen to this podcast very carefully. Forgotten. Yes.
Very good. Well dug out.
Backpedaling.
Superb backpedaling. I will work on that because there's a word as well, isn't there, whereby if you add a prefix to make it another word, you're disencouraged. So the opposite of disencouraged is encouraged. Yes. So forgotten and gotten might be the opposite, making the same word.
Talking of opposites.
Yes.
I do have form at making words up. So just to add this in, my first blog was called Unraveling Edges. because it was about when Andrew died and it was about how everything unraveled.
Yeah.
And I felt like things were being pulled and plucked in different directions. So after a year, I started a second blog, and I thought I need an opposite to unraveled. So I then started re-raveled, and I started re-raveling.
And I understood that when I was looking at your website. I saw that. I thought that was very good. Unraveling the edges.
Yeah, unraveling edges and then re-raveling. So re-raveling was a lot more positive, or had a lot more, positive things. Although actually even unraveling edges, where I did find when I was writing my blog that every blog post, it was a way of me chuntering and getting all those things out. But by the end, I'd kind of almost resolved the issue and almost untangled this knot of unraveled threads. How about that?
Out of my pedantry, came a really good piece of information.
Well, there you go, you see.
That's very good. Well, I'll tell you what I'd like to do then, if that's okay, Sarah, taking this a bit further, because you talked about your cancer briefly. You've mentioned about your husband, and I've noticed that you still talk about your husband as if he's in the present tense, which is very interesting. So I'd like to know more about that. But I think to encompass it all, the fact you're a Christian, I think this is where this podcast will help those that are maybe going through things as well, who are Christians saying, well, how is this allowed to happen? And I think that's how we can focus the rest of the podcast, with a bit of humour as well.
Absolutely.
With a bit of pedantry from you.
A sprinkling of glitter.
A sprinkling of glitter. You see, that's how I want to look at the rest of the time, if that's all right, Sarah.
Definitely.
So first of all then, just tell me about your faith as to when you became a Christian and that sort of stuff, please.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, as I've already intimated, I used to go to church as a child and used to sit with my grandma. My grandma, of course, had her own pew, good Church of England churchgoer. This was her pew. Woe betide anybody that sat there. So I grew up, I was baptized and confirmed, went through the whole thing, and then kind of drifted away in my sort of teenage years and stopped going to church, wasn't as interested. I think I went for a while after I was confirmed because there was a lad I fancied. But
yeah, there you go.
As it goes. But by the time I got to sixth form, by the time I was 16, 17, went to sixth form, and I met some friends who were very much fervent for the Lord, shall we say. My friend of mine was the daughter of the Baptist minister locally. And my friends started talking, and they automatically assumed that I wasn't a Christian.
Ooh.
Because I didn't go to church at that point. I used to stay at home and watch the Waltons on a Sunday morning. Well, my brother used to do BMX, so my mum and dad used to travel out with my brother, take him to these BMX days. I used to stay at home and I used to watch the Waltons. That was my Sunday morning.
Well, Jim Bob said quite a few good things in his past.
Absolutely. Oh, Jim Bob was my favourite. I had such a crush on him. I really did. Well, we kind of grew up at Jim Bob was always that little bit older. Elizabeth would have been my friend, and Jim Bob would have been my boyfriend in my dreams. That was my Sunday, and I didn't go to church. But I didn't understand why my friends thought that didn't make me a Christian.
Yeah.
Despite this wholesome, stuff going on in my life. That's when it kind of got challenged, really. And from there, they had Steve Chalk come and talk. So I listened to him and had this amazing experience, much more personal faith, came home, told my parents, I've become a Christian. And they went, but you already were a Christian. And to be honest, I've been baffled about that ever since, because I now look back. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it?
Actually, I think I always was a Christian, but I think I just needed that extra something to kind of kickstart it again and go, well, if you are following me, then show it, do something about it. So yeah, so that's when I, then started going back to church more regularly. When I went to university, Polytechnic, I joined the Christian Union and I just threw myself in wholeheartedly. That's the kind of person I am. And all of a sudden it was like, if Jesus did come and die for me, then actually I need to do something about it. It's not something that I can just put on the back burner, says she, who's not very good at reading her Bible or praying even now. But I don't know, life just goes in ebbs and flows, doesn't it, with different things.
Thank you for sharing that, because most of us, I think, can identify with that kind of way that we became Christians ourselves.
Mm.
But let's now go into the meat of the subject now, if that's okay, which resulted in the book. And as a Christian, you go out for a cup of coffee or go and see your friends, and you come back because your husband wasn't well. And I want people to buy the book. So I only want to talk about the area around it, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that people will go and buy the book.
Yeah.
But looking back on it now, you said hindsight is a wonderful thing. What would you have done differently?
I don't know. I'm almost not sure I would.
That's interesting.
A couple of days before Andrew died, and this is actually a story in my book, and I was talking at a Mothers' Union yesterday and I happened to find this story and I read it. We used to live in the northeast. We used to live in a place called Saltburn on the northeast coast.
Heard of it?
Now, if anybody knows Saltburn, to drive into where the sea is, it's right down one hill and then it's up another windy hill from where we lived. We lived just south of Saltburn. And as I was driving down one day towards Saltburn, I mean, I don't often have worship songs on in the car, but that day there was a worship song and it was God, His love endures forever. So I'm singing this at the top of my voice. I'm going down into Saltburn because I'm going to the church we were at. Used to have a breakfast once a half term. Used to have free breakfast for the community. So I'm driving to get to breakfast. There's this beautiful rainbow in the sky. So I'm driving down, singing this song, absolutely thinking, God's with me. Life is amazing. 2 days later, Andrew died. But I still remember that rainbow, and I still remember, and it's that fact that God was with me, even though all of the other stuff went on that was just crap, really, if I'm allowed to say that.
Yes.
Okay. Could have been worse.
Oh, yes. And then I would have got my bleep button out, so you're fine.
The reason I say I wouldn't have done anything different, this is such a hard one. Andrew, he'd suffered with depression anyway. He did suffer with mental health issues. His heart attack was when he died, he was 48. His dad had his first heart attack at 48. And after his heart attack had subsequent strokes and further heart attacks. And he'd never really been the same again. And Andrew worked offshore. He worked on an oil rig. He was fit and healthy because they had medicals every so many years. He also used to drive, when he came home, he used to then drive a school bus. Now, both these occupations may have had to be put on hold if he had subsequent heart issues. And I'm not sure what kind of life he would have had. So if I had have not gone to my friends, or if I had have got back earlier and the paramedics had managed to revive him, I'm not sure who he would have become. And Andrew's mum, she was amazing, looked after my father-in-law, but I'm not sure that I'd have that patience. Mm-hmm. To be brutally honest, I'm not sure that I would have had the patience to do that. And I know God does give you the strength for all sorts. And maybe losing Andrew and being on my own and having to bring the boys up was harder. I don't know. But that's the thing, isn't it? You never know. And it is that thing of almost like choosing the lesser of two evils, but you can't. You can't, and you go with what happens. And I think that's the other thing, is that actually, if I'd have done something differently, but you can't go down that way because that's not what happened. So you kind of have to get on with where you are, because otherwise you live with too much regret and too much if only.
Yes.
That's not a way to live either. I think it's very hard for the boys to not have a dad.
Yes.
And I think that's why we are so close. And the boys themselves are very close. They actually share a flat together. And that's what's kept us together, is that tightness of the three of us. We talk about things all the time. We talk about everything, and we include Andrew in what we talk about. I'm filling up here. I've not spoke about this so deeply for a long time.
Well, thank you for sharing this. Can we go a bit further?
Yeah, no, do.
Because a very good friend of mine, her husband died, similar age, and the parents of her husband blamed her and their two children ever since, because they thought the children could have done more to help out. And that was similar to a heart attack as well. Looking back on that time then, how much blame did you blame on anybody else, the fact that your husband died?
I don't know. I don't think I did blame anybody, really. So I was out visiting a friend. I came home. The boys were still downstairs. I said, where's your dad? And they went, he's still upstairs. He'd gone to bed with a headache, which was very unusual for him. It wasn't a typical thing. And they said, he did come down just to see whether what the football scores were. So I'd got one son watching the football scores and one son playing on the computer in the other room. So they'd kind of seen him then. I mean, my youngest son says he thinks he heard a thud, which obviously was possibly Andrew falling because he was beside the bed. And then I went upstairs and found him. And then because he was face down, I had to call my boys, and they actually saw him. My eldest helped me because I rang 999, and then they said, could I turn him over? Because obviously he's face down. And I think I already knew he was gone, really. So we had to turn him over, and then they get you to do the CPR. So my eldest son at 13 was doing the chest compressions, because I was talking on the phone, and it was still that time where I couldn't quite grasp hands free with your phone. And, it was still that time where you still kind of felt you had to hold the phone up to your ear. And so my son was doing that. And then my youngest son went out to go and watch for the ambulance driver so that they knew where to come. And they were, we were all so involved in it. And that's hard. And that's, I suppose, a regret that they had to kind of do that. And then, of course, there was some gurgling noises. So my son thought, well, he must be okay, because there's some sign of something. And as I said, we do talk. I do still wonder whether there will be issues for them as they get older. My eldest son has certainly gone down the very healthy route. He eats very healthy food. He's incredibly fit. And I think that's probably his way of dealing with things. Yeah, I've perhaps never really got this deep in my conversation with them. But they know that the door's always open and we can talk if they want to.
Because quite often deep down we think about, if I've only done this, if I've only done that. And I certainly know with my good friend that her boys have been given this blame and they did everything like your boys did. It was just ridiculous. People like to project their upset or anger on somebody else to make them feel better.
Yeah.
But obviously there can be a knock-on effect in years to come.
Yeah, yeah.
Us Brits are very good at thinking, well, we don't really need counselling. We don't really need to go and see anybody. But obviously, in hindsight, that can be the wrong idea, that maybe we should go and talk it through. So what was available to yourself and your sons to discuss this? We
did go for a family session. The boys didn't really engage with it. We have spoken about it, but maybe not on a really deep level. They're both very attuned with their mental health and knowing what's sort of going on. And they, as I said, they share a house. They're both Christians. So we kind of put, because we've had lots of ups and downs, and we have now put this thing in place that I said, well, look, the two of you need to, on a Saturday, do some housework together, then sit down and just talk about how your week's been and the good points, the bad points, and pray together. So actually they're now praying together a lot more as well, which has been kind of recently instigated that one. And we, if we all get together, then we do try and pray. For me, it took me 3 attempts to find a counsellor that actually helped me. I think that's something else that I'd also want to pass on to people, that the first counsellor you find may not be the right one. I did one lot of counselling, and the woman that was counselling me, I should have been counselling her because she was telling me her problems.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. She told me stuff that actually I really did not want to know.
Yeah.
Projecting her own bad marriage. As I said, Andrew suffered from depression, so there were some issues there that I kind of needed to sort out in my own head. But she was then telling me about her abusive husband, so that really wasn't helpful. I then had another counsellor. It was a male counsellor. I said, yeah, well, go for that. But he came up with some other stuff that he came out with, and I'm like, where's that come from? Both of those were free counsellors, and I'm not saying anything against people who are free, because I'm sure there are some great counsellors out there. But in the end, I was fortunate enough that I had the money to be able to pay for somebody to do the counselling, and she was excellent. But even then, it took couple of sessions to kind of go, not sure if this is working, till you have to give it a go, but you also be ready to go, actually this isn't helpful.
Thank you that you're sharing this. And let's now throw the 3-letter word in, begin with G, ending in D, and the letter O in the middle.
That one. Yeah,
that one.
Dog.
That one. Very good. Where was God in this process, do you think, then? From the moment that you went upstairs to find Andrew on the floor Where was God in all this? Especially as you had the rainbow effect just 2 days previously.
Yeah. Where was God? Some good things came out of that evening.
Really?
Well, I called a friend. She came round straight away and came and sat with me. And obviously her husband knew. So they kind of started this ripple effect of phone calls.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the prayer chain developed in the church, because people then discovered, actually, there's a need for this, because there wasn't one before. So God was definitely there, working behind the scenes, as one person told another. We were in an interregnum at the time, so we didn't have a vicar, but our previous vicar found out. So he then rang me, and my first words were, "You will come back and do the funeral, won't you?" He said, "Of course I will." And just that support network of church friends and family. So this was on the Saturday, and by the Monday, when obviously the kids were back at school, one of my close friends was actually the deputy head at the secondary school where my son was. So he knew, so he could let them know. And the primary school somehow had found out as well, when my youngest son was going, had found out, and they all knew. And the people that didn't know was the doctor's surgery. It's going off a bit at a tangent again, but a couple of days after Andrew died, and I'd really not been sleeping, and I rang the doctors to see if I could get some tablets or something to help me sleep. Finally managed to get this appointment and got into the doctors, and they went, "What's happened?" And I said, that Andrew died. She said, "We usually get informed," but they hadn't. So she had no idea that Andrew had died and what I was having to deal with. And it's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes some things seem to work, and then other things, the communication just fractures, and you feel abandoned by that.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, how much blame were you throwing at God for what happened to Andrew?
I don't know. I think it took me a while to kind of get to that sort of, because they say there's all the different stages, don't they, of grief, and obviously there's anger and blame, and I think because we'd had our ups and downs with him suffering with depression, and although things were getting back on track. I think I intimated earlier he didn't like holidays, so we never went, very rarely went away, because he worked away. So he came home, and that to him was heaven. And it was like, well, I want to go away, and I want to go, and do stuff and explore and visit the world, and life wasn't always easy. So I don't know. I think blame's a very strong word to use about blaming God. Not that I automatically just accepted everything, but I just don't know whether blame is the right word somehow. I used to question God, well, why does this happen? Why? Andrew was my first boyfriend, and I didn't meet him till I was in my early 20s. And I used to feel like I was going to be left on the shelf forever, because nobody liked me, and Jim Bob was on the telly. He wasn't real.
Yeah.
Finding Andrew and getting married was huge for me, because I just felt that was kind of the pinnacle of my existence. And then to kind of get that, but I don't think blame is the word. I think it's more like, why?
Yeah.
It's not a blame, but it's like well, I don't understand this. Why is it not this perfect fairy tale like, I'd been brought up with?
Wow. Thank you for sharing this. And I think to sum it all up, if that's okay, before we move on to the next stage of your career, because obviously you mentioned the C word, so we can talk about that if that's okay with you. Mm-hmm. To sum it all up, for those that have just gone through bereavement or are just facing the suddenness of, I've lost a loved one myself, from what you've experienced in all those 16 years since, what would you say?
What I always say to people when I then, because obviously sometimes I feel like a bit of a trailblazer, because I lost Andrew so young, that now, I'm getting to that stage where other friends of mine are, losing their husbands. And I just say, just do what you need to do. I mean, obviously I used to live near the beach. So if it's just walking along the beach and screaming, go for it. If it's just lying on the sofa and crying your eyes out, just go with how you feel. And there isn't a right or wrong answer. And don't let anybody say, oh, you shouldn't do that, you should do this, because it's about you have to do what you have to do and what's good for you. And it's not always the same for each person. And the other thing is everybody's grief is different. I've lost my husband. Well, my mum's lost her husband. I lost my dad. But my mum always goes, oh, and I look at you and I see what you did. And I'm like, but mum, it's different because I had the boys young. They were 10 and 13. I had to get up every morning. I had to get them out to school. They kept me going. And actually, from that perspective, I think it was easier than if you lose somebody later in life who you've spent so many years with. That ache that you feel is very different. And everybody's grief is different, whether it's a sudden death like Andrew's or a prolonged one where somebody's been ill. And don't compare yourself with just, well, so-and-so's doing this. Well, yeah, so what? That might make them feel better, but it's not going to work for you.
Great answer. Thank you. So, a few years later, along comes the C word.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can you tell us about that then, young Sarah?
See, that's another miscommunication from within the NHS. I mean, I love the NHS to bits, don't get me wrong, but there are some things that they're not very good at communicating. And this one was a case of I had some tests because I'm having a few aches and pains, had a few tests, was still living up in the northeast. Basically, they diagnosed that I'd got bowel cancer. They really wanted to operate. Problem is, I just sold my house and I was moving in 3 weeks. My friend couldn't believe that I made this decision, but I said, but I'm moving. End of. I don't think I really registered the whole cancer thing. I said, I've got to move because, and the consultant said, well, what's more important, moving or your health? And I'm like, but moving is for my health because I was moving back where I grew up, back where my parents were. My dad was going through cancer treatment at the same time. So I was moving back to be there. I'd finally sold this big house, which was supposed to be our forever home, which was a huge 7-bedroom, double-fronted sandstone built house in Yorkshire that took me years to sell. I finally sold it and I was moving. So I moved and got down to Suffolk and went to the doctors, and the GP to GP passed on my notes, no problem. Apparently my GP wrote a wonderful letter all about me, because obviously he'd known everything that had gone on. Then I went to the hospital and said, I had a hospital appointment and said, I've had these symptoms, I've had tests up in the north and I've got cancer. Well, you might not have cancer because hospitals don't pass on notes from hospital to hospital.
Really?
Isn't that a shocker? And I hadn't realised, but they don't pass on notes from hospital to hospital. So I kind of started back at square one, started having some tests, and then I felt violently sick one weekend and ended up in A&E and said, I did have a scan the other day. And basically they took me straight to theatre because I had a huge blockage in my bowel. Ended up being emergency surgery. So I didn't have time to think about anything, but I was feeling so ill and I was so aware that my boys had already lost their dad and were they now going to lose their mum? My youngest had only just started university. They were both still up in the northeast. I was down in Suffolk. And I had no idea what I was facing, really. I think at the time I just kind of bumbled along and, I'd got moved, I'd got out of my house. I'd somehow, I think God was definitely with me, just holding me somehow, keeping me going.
They often say, don't they, that the 3 worst things you can go through in life as far as mental health is concerned is divorce, death of a loved one, and moving. And you had 2 of the 3 really going on.
Yeah.
And yet a few years' time, as in now, you're still here. So obviously that's good news. The NHS were able to eventually work out what the problem was.
Yeah, they were amazing.
But let's again throw the 3-letter word in, if that's all right. How much did you blame God for this?
It was much more of a why. Why? I don't want to blame him. Again, I think it's just this isn't fair. This isn't fair that now I'm here and I think it's much more of a shouting at God and getting cross with him. But at the same time, I was very aware he was still with me. I mean, I remember being, after I'd come out of the critical care, so I'd obviously been in critical care for a while, and then I was on the ward with some other lovely ladies, and I remember praying for them and praying for these other women, and it makes me sound far more holy than I really am. But I just felt that praying for these lovely ladies that were there, that some of them may have never been prayed for. And I had those kind of feelings that, God has put me, and maybe it goes back to the book of Esther and why I like the book of Esther, for such a time as this. This is where I need to be at this time. And I don't know why. I don't understand it all. I will never understand it all this side of heaven. But while I'm here, yes, I can blame God and get cross and all the rest of it, or I can find a worship song on YouTube and listen to that and hold on to the fact that God still loves me. God loves me even though he's putting me through all this, and pray for these, particularly the lady in the bed over there who's a bit of a pain in the backside, to everybody, because God loves all of them too. So I don't know.
No, I think that is an incredible answer. And the fact that you've been able to maybe put a bit of spin doctoring onto it as well regarding the book of Esther for such a time as this. You're able to see past how you're feeling and thinking of others. I mean, that's incredible to do that. With your cancer, with the loss of Andrew, looking after your 2 young children all on your own, that's a feat in itself that deserves, if you like Muttley the dog, gimme, I want a medal sort of thing. You deserve a medal for that.
But it's a case of you either pull your socks up and get on with life, or you go under. And I knew when I was on my own with the kids that I couldn't go under. Years before, when my youngest was 2, he never went through the terrible 2s. He was absolutely delightful. My eldest was 5 at the time. I'm not painting him in a good light, but anyway, the testosterone was surging and he was full on and at school and mixing with lots of other boys who'd got older brothers. So all of a sudden the influences were very different on him. That was when Andrew was first diagnosed with depression. And then my mum rang me and said, I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I think that was the moment where I came up with that kind of whole philosophy really of, well, I can go under too, because I think I was probably suffering from depression at the time. But Andrew managed to get the happy pills before I managed to get to the doctors, and everything else that was going on. And it was like, I step up or we go under. And maybe looping back again to the idea of it would be lovely to sit with my grandma and having a conversation. She obviously went through very similar, maybe not with the health issues, but, with losing a husband and having, a business and everything else that was going on, and she was that kind of that generation that was just, you get on with it. And so maybe my strength sort of has come through that line of the family. I don't know. A bit of family genes and a bit of God's provision.
I did say this right at the very beginning, so I'm going to ask you now then, Sarah, what do you think have you achieved so far in dealing with all these issues and more?
Well, I've written a book.
Written a book.
As I said, I started blogging after Andrew died. I started the blog 2 weeks after he died, which would have been his 49th birthday. And writing helped me sort lots of things out. And from the beginning, friends were saying, you should put this in a book because it would help people. And so I think that's a big achievement, to have this book that hopefully helps people. I'm not saying this is how you do things. You do, follow steps by A, B, and C, and it will all be all right. Because it isn't, and it's called In Search of Lost Glitter because it's looking for the little bits of sparkle, and it's those little things that spark off other ideas.
But also, to your credit, your mental attitude of doing an Esther. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, you've done an Esther. You put your family first.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, that's the other thing that I'm really proud of my boys. They both went on to get first-class degrees.
Wow.
My eldest son was a sports journalist, but has now given that up and has just trained to be a primary teacher. And he's got his first teaching job in a Catholic primary school starting in September. And my youngest is a software developer, and they are both amazing. And they both amaze me with what they do and their love and compassion and their own faith, which has grown independently. Because similar to me, they were brought up going to church when they were younger. we had a very good support network from our church family and friends, and that they've held on to. They kind of had their time of drifting away from going to regular church services, but they're now both in churches and both volunteered to, do things within their churches. And so, yes, I'm proud of that as well, that I managed to keep them going, and here we are.
And looking back on it, the fact that, you put your family first, your two boys, what did you personally have to give up in order to do that?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, as I said, Andrew was my first boyfriend, and I would love a bit of romance in my life, but I haven't had chance to pursue anything because I've been looking after the boys, and because I never went down that route of going, well, I want to do, I don't know, have I given up romance? Is there still romance out there? I don't know. It sounds a bit wishy-washy. I don't know. I think that's what I miss, is the fact that, sometimes you look on Facebook and you see other friends who are, in their couples, and they're going off and doing all these nice things now because their kids have left home. And that's probably where it hurts the most, thinking, if he was still around, would we still be together? Because that's always an issue. Because I always think, well, I don't know, because of mental health issues and everything else. Would I have written a book? Highly unlikely. So although there's a lot that I've missed, there's an awful lot that I've gained in the overall things. I'm in tears again.
Well, that's an amazing answer that you're giving, and I'm really pleased to be able to share that. So the $64,000 question then. Let's go back into my time machine, which I haven't used particularly well on this episode, but we're going to go back to a couple of weeks after.
Does it look like the TARDIS?
No. Nothing like the TARDIS at all.
Oh, shame.
But it's painted red and white because of the football team. So we go back to 2010, all right?
Yeah.
You know what you've been through. We go back there. You've got an opportunity to, change your life, so it's different. So the first question is, what would you do? Would you keep it as is, or would you change it? And B, when you're then able to meet yourself in 2010, what would you say to yourself? Go for A first.
You can't change it.
Because?
You can't change it because I'm a different person now, and I wouldn't be this person if I hadn't been through it all.
Do you like the person you are now?
And I think that's why I'm crying, because that means I have to let him go.
But do you like the person you are now, though?
Yeah. Yes, because I think I know more about who I am. I think, God, this is so deep. I think maybe I'd fallen for that fairy tale lie of all the rom-coms that, you meet somebody and it's happy ever after. And life isn't like that for anybody. And even if you do look at other people's Facebook posts and they're away and they're beautiful holidays together, it takes a lot of work to get there regardless. And I'm doing things now that I would never have dreamt of doing, even just being here talking to you, Martin. This wouldn't have happened, not in this way. And hopefully by going through it, I can help others, in this strange way, because something that I've said might resonate with somebody and help them. And that's all you can ask at the end.
Thank you. Going to question B then of the two-parter. Apart from saying to yourself in 2010, keep going because you're going to be on off-grid Christianity in 2025.
Pinnacle of your career.
Yeah. What would you say to your former self?
I don't know if I'd say anything. I think I'd just give her a hug. Because it's that physical thing. It's the thing that I miss the most. I think I'd just hold her tight. When I was told I had cancer, one of our GPs came round to see me before I moved. So obviously he knew all the scans and everything. He knew what was going on. And he said, "Can I see you before you go?" I said, "Yeah." So he popped round one night and he gave me this hug that was so tight, because he knew everything. He knew all my past medical history and family history. He knew all about Andrew's depression. He knew all about all the stuff I'd been through with the kids, and just everything else that had gone on really in my adult life. And he just gave me this hug. And I think that's the kind of hug that I would want to give, myself in 2010.
Wonderful answer. It's not just wonderful answer, and it's not just an honest answer. It's an answer that I think sums up the whole of the podcast. And I don't take it lightly, the fact that you're crying. I think anyone that's listening to this podcast will want to give you a big hug. I want to say thank you for your honesty. We didn't have enough quirkiness.
No, I know. We need a bit more quirkiness, don't we?
We need a bit of quirkiness in the last answer coming up.
Gosh, I might have to change me.
I think what we need to say to you is that Esther is the person here that you are now, and that for such a time as this, hopefully this podcast could be used by those that are listening at the moment and just sending it out to other people, because that's what I'm trying to do here for myself. It's not for my glory. I just want people to use this podcast because I believe there's a golden nugget in every single one that I've done. And here it's like people should be sending it to their friends, say, listen to this. This is what Sarah's going through and has gone through. And there is more than just light at the end of the tunnel. And as a result of that, they will feel affirmation. And they will also then go to Amazon and order your book.
Hopefully, which is also available on Kindle and on audio. So, if you really want to hear more of my voice, I'm reading it. I'm so glad I didn't do my makeup. Oh, dear. Goodness me. You've really touched a nerve, haven't you?
Do you mind?
No. We'll see how it blesses people.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, let's go for a bit of quirkiness, if that's all right.
Oh, I know.
We need a bit of quirk.
I know.
So, Sarah Nicholson.
Yes.
Author of a book that everybody needs to read, In Search of Lost Glitter.
Absolutely. Available
on Kindle and Amazon, as you've very succinctly told us.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your Christian hero, please?
So you want quirkiness, and I'm not sure I've got quirky. But anyway.
We'll throw a bit of quirkiness in with it as well. Go for it.
We'll try and throw some quirkiness in.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose she is a quirky character.
Ah.
She's a quirky character. I'm going to pick Julian of Norwich.
Well, this is interesting.
Oh, yes. This is it. Oh, yes.
Yes. We haven't had Julian for Norwich for yonks. And then just like buses, they all come in three at a time.
Really? Oh, wow.
Last week's podcast was Julian of Norwich.
But I think the Julian of Norwich that I would like to meet is the Julian of Norwich who is in the book I, Julian by Claire Gilbert.
Tell me more.
Because Claire Gilbert has basically taken the story but fictionalised it. And she's made Julian of Norwich, for me, come alive and made her into more of a real person rather than this holy woman who you kind of think of as being so amazing because she kind of locked herself away and lived like a hermit. And she just made her humanity of her and just the humanness of being shut away. And there's even a page, and it could be, it is fiction, but there's a bit where she actually creeps out. She climbs out of the window and walks around the garden. So it may not be the real Julian of Norwich, but it's that woman who prays for people and is still in a position where, there's still everybody else outside and positioning for where she should be and power. And yet she just carries on and is just faithful. And it would be nice just to be that faithful.
Well, I think you have been. And for those who don't know much about Julian Norwich, thinking, hang on a minute, Julian's a bloke's name. Julian is actually a girl in this case.
It's a girl. And she wrote, her writings were the first published writings by a female author in English or something like that. So, yes, as a writer, there's obviously some resonance there with that as well. So, and Norwich isn't that far away from Ipswich.
Well, a day's drive.
Yeah, well, not even that. Not even that.
Day's drive, if you go at 10 mile an hour.
We do have cars now. It's not just horse and carts,
Oh, right. Okay. Did not know that.
Did not know. Yeah. Back and beyond and all that. I copied your notes and wrote everything down and put 2-minute hero must be dead.
And she's slightly dead.
I think she's slightly dead.
About 1,000 years ago, something like that, wasn't it? She's around.
I'm not very good with history, but I quite like historical novels that kind of just bring the characters to life, and you kind of go, yeah, it's just, she just did have this interesting life, really. Shut herself away, and yet was still knew what was going on.
Well, here's the thing. This novel that you're going to be writing and finishing about Esther in a dystopian world,
maybe
she should meet a Gillian of Norwich type person in there as well.
I think she does, actually.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, I think she does. Yeah. It's coming back to me now, what I've written before.
Well, you got to finish it after this podcast, and then I'll buy the film rights, if that's okay.
I am working on a second book of more flash fiction. So I am actually in the process of writing a book of flash fiction with stories all about love.
Oh, agape and all that.
But different types of love, including a story called For the Love of Cheese.
Oh, you have to read that carefully, of course. Other cheese puns are also available.
Absolutely. So, For the Love of Cheese. Actually, I think the character in that one is called Martin.
Oh, what a bloke he sounds. What a bloke.
Oh, yes. When I've had that one out, you definitely have to buy that book just to find out the story of...
Buy? My lawyers would be over it like a rash, I tell you. Sarah, thank you so much for your honesty and for the fact that you were able to just share. For those that would maybe like to contact you as a result of listening to this, how can they do it?
I have a website.
Get you.
Yeah, I know, get me. And it's sarahnicholsonwrites.com. So Sarah with an H, Nicholson with an H, and then Writes with a W.
So apart from writing your books, what else is coming up in the near future?
In the very near future, this afternoon I'm going to the cinema.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm going to go and see The Salt Path.
Never heard of it, but I'm looking forward to seeing it when it comes out on Blu-ray.
Old school.
I am very old school. Enjoy that. You deserve it. And thank you
you
so much, Sarah, for joining us. It's been an incredible podcast. And for those that have been touched by it, please let us know, either me or Sarah. And I can pass on all the feedback. It's a podcast and a half. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. It really means a lot to us. Thank you. Next time on Off-Grid Christianity.
I always think if he came back today, we'd invite him to preach, he'd tell a parable, and we'd say, well, Jesus, we really prefer sermons with 3 points, all begin with the same letter, so we're going to send you off to Bible college. He would, not in a judgmental way, but through telling stories. So he might tell us the story of St. Anthony. And St. Anthony was a very well-known monk, and he was sort of chilling out with the other monks. And this hunter came along and was really disappointed that these monks weren't working hard. And he said to St. Anthony, I'm really disappointed about this. So St. Anthony said, oh, you've got a beautiful bow on your back. Can you just stretch it for me? So he stretched it. He said, can you stretch it a bit further? He said, yeah. He said, no, that's not far enough. Stretch it a bit further. He said, if I stretch it any further, it'll break. And he said, so it is with the monks. Actually, we're like these bows. We need to allow it to come back to the relaxed position. And that's how we're created.
So please join me with psychotherapist, mindfulness researcher, as well as Baptist minister, our guest, the Reverend Dr. Sean Lambert. Until next time, cheerio.